as enjoyable to be around as anyone I've ever coached on game day and not on game day or out of uniform. But he wasn't happy he came out of the game as early as he did last week. And, you know, we're all teammates, but we got different roles. So coaches go with decisions, and when players get their opportunity, they got to go out there and compete. And, man, obviously we owe a lot to Stom and to Beam. But I would say out of the three guys, the one guy that showed right out of the gate that he was going to throw that thing with conviction and he was going to hunt down strike one was Xander. And he didn't want anyone taking the ball out of his hand. And I'm glad we won the game, because an answer I would have had to make in here, if it doesn't go our way, is why'd you take that guy out of the game? He was rolling along pretty good. And, you know, he hadn't been to the seventh inning yet, and we're really, really confident in those guys that were down there, including Kirby, and it could have even been guys after that. So a good team win and a phenomenal outing by him.
Tony, with Vanderbilt winning today, how does it feel to achieve that first goal this season?
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot to take in. That's very difficult to do. Congrats to anybody in this league that finished with a winning record. It ain't easy. And I think one thing that's reflected with this week in Hoover is if you can finish in the top four, you've set yourself up, you know, pretty nicely. And Arkansas and A&M have done that. And obviously Kentucky had a phenomenal year. And it's kind of weird how it worked out. I remember driving back from South Carolina, and we finished, you know, in first place in the division, 21, I think, because Kentucky beat Vanderbilt. And then, you know, you come to the park today, and we were hoping, you know, Lefty could stick it on Kentucky, because he threw very well against us. You know, he was really good against us last week. And, of course, we got to do our job and win the game. And I'm proud of our guys. There wasn't a lot of chatter about any of that stuff going on. I didn't hear any scores or anything going like that. The guys were just focused on the task at hand. And if you do that, if you have the right approach, more times than not, the result will work itself out.
What does it say about Xander that he came out knowing that there could be big stakes today through with that conviction you're talking about?
I think he's evolved a lot as a player. I mean, look at what he's been a part of just in our dugout, in the locker room, and then on the field. And then, you know, he's been asked to do more and more as each day or year has gone by for him. And he's shown consistent improvement. And it says a lot about, you know, his work ethic and his character. But I think the biggest thing is, like I was kind of alluding to today, is his determination. I think he's a lot more determined than maybe you'd recognize, because there's not as many fist pumps and things like that. So what you want out of a guy when he enters, you know, your hallways, become better each year, but it doesn't always work out that way. You have to evolve as a player, and he's done that, and he's got more time and more room to continue to do that.
What about Aaron gives you the confidence that he can come in and finish out the game like he did today?
I think the biggest thing is you want to know the guy wants to be out there, and I think he's dying to be out there. And just to peel back the curtain, we were going to go to Kirby, and he came down the end of the dugout and kind of gave it the devil eyes, like, if you take me out, you're going to have to buy new tires. So we let him roll with it, and, you know, he's not the only one, but it's a lot of times he's out there, you almost have to calm him down. So that's the biggest thing. And then he's one of a handful of guys that I think his stuff is different than the others, but which is nice. We've got a lot of guys that kind of complement each other. But just like Banky in a big situation last night, they got the stuff and the willingness to be out there that you trust them. And now, because of last year, those spots we put him in, he can say he's been in about every spot you can imagine, including, I mean, that K-State game was as hyped up as any game we had played to that point, and he started that game. So, valuable pitcher, and I like coaching that dude. I like being on that team, on the team with that guy.
Change your approach or mindset, if any, kind of heading into the tournament?
Yeah, I think we talked out there a little bit. We want to wait and see when we're supposed to play on Wednesday. And you always want to compete when you step on the field, but we want to manage it the right way. We're kind of, you know, in a different spot than we were last year for sure, and then this year is unique unto its own. And I guess what I'm getting at is we've already met as a coaching staff, and there's certain things we want to make sure we accomplish while we're there. And so you'd like to win, but we'd also like to check those boxes.
Tony, talk about the relationship with the fans and what they mean to you guys, especially here at home when we come out here to Lindsey Nelson.
Yeah, I mean, it was a weekend where you could tell there was a difference being made by the fans, especially the first two games. Today was not as explosive as a day, you know, so it's not like they weren't involved, but you really noticed them giving us an edge the previous two nights. And I just congratulated Vince and John, because they're a part of this too. It takes a village, especially if you're kind of coming from we're pretty blessed, so there's no sympathy needed, but it's not like we have the biggest stadium or the best tradition or this or that. So in order to make progress, like I said, it takes a village, and there's an awful lot of people that have helped, including you all have been good to us, knock on all kinds of wood. So we appreciate that, and we recognize that. We don't take it for granted. And it's nice when the guys can celebrate. It was kind of awkward. They went in the lounge, and then they went back out there, but it was nice, and we'll see them in Hoover. I mean, the fan bases in Hoover kind of stand out a little bit. They all go down there. They all talk smack, and there's a bunch of them because it's the SEC. But there are about 3 or 4 that tend to have more people than others, and I'm proud that we're in that group.
How do you keep the eye on the prize so you don't have an early exit from Hoover?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm kind of worn out. I think the eye on the prize is for 24 hours, let these guys be kids, and then again, when you finish in the top 4, it's a little easier to manage the situation. But this has been a group that's, according to Drew Gilbert, which is crazy for him to use the word mature, he said when he watches this team, they seem more mature and, kind of keep tunnel vision on what the next thing is in front of them. So I think it's just that. So you get 24 hours to do that stuff, and then if you're packing, you're packing. If we're practicing down there, you practice, and then we don't know our opponents, so let's just be ready for whatever our next task is.
How important was it that is going into the week?
So he threw out here, and it's been a question asked frequently, and he's had to, if he's at 100% or at his best, there would have been a time we would have utilized him this week, but we want to proceed. I don't want to say with caution, but with proper sequence, and I think he's anxious and tired of being held back, even though he may or may not be at 100%. So he'll pitch for us at some point. I think the key for him and also our team to recognize is he's not coming to save the day. Right now, we've got a really good group we trust. There's even some guys you could say they're probably thinking they're underutilized. So when he gets into the mix, he's not going to be built up to start or anything crazy. We're looking for 5, maybe 6 outs a week that can support our staff if he's called on to do so, and I think he'll be ready to do that. I know he's anxious to do that.
How important was it for Fargo to have some success going into the tournament?
Good, but he believes in himself, and we do too. And those guys, again, to peel back the curtain maybe more than I should, we'll visit with them, and they shouldn't feel like the frequent changes come because they did something wrong, so we're trying some other guy. We have the flexibility to go into a game. If we really wanted to, we had the flexibility, if the DH spot gets 4 at-bats, to do 4 different guys just because one's a bunt situation, and then one, we need the ball put in play, and one, it's a leadoff. We're looking for a guy just to get on base. But he's got gifted hands, and the one thing about today, whether he would have got good feedback or not, because the first ball he drove well and it got caught, he was moving a lot slower today instead of running at the thing. And Blake Burke hits that home run last night just with a good, easy swing, and it'll be on me to follow through on it. Those guys need video clips of that to see that pace is baseball speed. Just because a guy's throwing harder, he's got good stuff, you try and go faster, you're going to get in trouble. And we saw good stuff this weekend, so it's good preparation for Hoover, because it's going to be, I'd rather be a fan than a coach in Hoover, because it's a show. It's going to be nonstop stuff, and obviously a lot of good players in one area.
What would having Russell back do just from a depth and options perspective for the staff?
I think make you feel better about various scenarios when we plan as coaches. I hate saying it, but worst case scenarios. If you look at this weekend, it went pretty well. Each guy really did his job, about as good as he can. No one was perfect. Beam, great outing, but wasn't great. Stom did his job, but wasn't great. Causey never really got in a flow. I guess Xander was probably the best guy on the whole weekend along with Combs, but no one was perfect, and we were able to piece that thing together without going Loy left on left. We really wanted Phillips to face Messina because he's so good. Both guys are so good. So it just added depth, and he started and relieved. So when you get into situations where you play more games than 3, you got a starter. So hopefully that's a decent answer.
How do you handle that juggle of wanting to win in Hoover versus getting guys innings and ABs before the regional play gets going?
Yeah, I caution to say it like this, but it's kind of like certain games we play in the middle of the year, and maybe like opening weekend we talked about, you really want to go down there and win on opening day, but you got to come out of there with 2 wins. And along the way, your starters are only built up to a certain pitch count. So you kind of got this mapping out scheme of we want to do this, and Bradkey's starting, but we also want to use a guy on the infield in this situation, get Dean some reps. So I think it's possible to scheme and check some boxes and still go compete. If again, I'll use that Dallas tournament. A.J. Russell, we're speaking to him, he was frustrated we took him out, but he kind of hit his pitch count limit. So if you're scheming ahead of time, whether it's pitch counts or making sure a guy gets an outing or an at-bat, at no point should that guy or you not be pushing forward to win the ball game. But I think you can do both, and because it's not a do-or-die tournament, fortunately, because our guys having some success, I think you can do that.